Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Chio Yoga class. This should be the last online lesson for a little while because throughout June, July, and August, there's going to be about every other week or every week some in-person yoga classes. So hopefully there will be emails coming out about those dates and the info shortly. In the meantime, thank you for joining me at home. If we haven't practiced together, I'm Nell. I'm a registered yoga teacher by night and work in the emergency department also by night. So for today's class, many of us might be experiencing the Ottawa race weekend this upcoming weekend. So I thought that we would take a minute to just kind of soften up. There will definitely still be a chance to get the heart rate up and to strengthen. But today's class, I really wanted to focus on just loosening the body, making ourselves feel extra squishy and mobile with a particular focus on the shoulders, because these for me have been really cramped up lately. We will be spending, as a warning, a fair amount of time on the knees for today's class. Of course, there will be some modifications. It will definitely help to have a nice thick yoga mat, to have a blanket or knee pads. If you don't have that, you can always fold over your yoga mat to give your knees some extra love and extra padding. It will also be helpful at parts if you have a yoga block available. You do not need one of these fancy things, a big thick textbook, can of soup, really nice stiff folded up blanket, anything that brings the ground closer to you honestly works just as well. Having water nearby is always handy, and we'll be going for about 50 minutes again today. So feel free to take a minute to gather all those materials before we get started. Once you're ready, let's take our time to arrive on our mats in a seated position. It's helpful if you have the long edge of the mat facing the screen. If that doesn't work in your space, no worries. You might just have to turn and look at what we're doing a little bit more. As you arrive in your seated position, you can take a minute to decide if you want your legs crossed, one leg in front of the other. Maybe if you have really open hips, feet together, knees apart, however you want to do it. Trust that whatever feels good for your body is the right choice for you. I think a big part of yoga is letting go of expectations and having the courage to tune in to choose what we actually need and want. If it feels safe to do so, allow the eyelids to flutter closed. Turn your attention inwards and begin to notice your breath. Let go of any sensation of doership, needing to do anything. And just let the breath arrive in and allow it to flow out. Take a minute to scan the body, noticing any sensations from the top of the head down through the neck and shoulders. Noticing any sensation in the arms as we allow them to grow heavy towards the mat. Imagine each vertebrae in your spine connecting you to the mat and to the earth. Feel your hips and where they make contact with the mat. Allow your legs to feel rooted and grounded into the mat. Imagine the stress and tension of the day melting off of you. Imagine your mat's like an absorbent sponge that's just going to take all that away from you. Let's invite some gentle movement into the body by drawing small circles with the nose, maybe about the size of a toonie or so. Slow and smooth is what we're aiming for. We want to be able to really hone in on the sensation of opening up the neck and shoulders. The circles can become progressively larger, maybe salad plate sized, even getting up to dinner plate size. It feels good to do so. Join the action to the breath. And imagine as if these smooth, slow circles are appearing in front of you. I invite you to hone in on any sensations in the neck and shoulders and meet them without any judgment. Any snaps and crackles you hear are welcome. That's the body shaking off its cobwebs and mobilizing. Feel how all the muscles of the neck take their turn to engage and make this simple movement happen. Imagine each individual muscle as it activates to turn and circle the head. You can feel the connection between the head and the shoulders, where these muscles make their attachments. Maybe even noticing the tiny sensations going down the back and spine that support this simple movement. Once you complete a circle, let's reverse the direction if you haven't already. Starting with our tiny circles and getting progressively larger. It can be very tempting for a seemingly simple movement like this to feel routine and to feel maybe even a little bored. But if we really hone in on the sensations, if we imagine every single little muscle in the neck and their action and tune into the feeling that it creates, even these very simple movements can become endlessly fascinating. No need to overdo it. The last thing we want is to do a really exaggerated stretch and cause our muscles to seize up and become tense. We want to ease them into this new state of mobility. Allow the movements to become smaller. And once you feel ready, let's return to a neutral position for stillness. Use the next breath or two to notice how you feel and to appreciate any extra tiny sensation of mobility and freedom that we've cultivated in the neck. From here, let's inhale our right arm up into the air and reach up and over towards the left, allowing the left palm to meet the mat for some support. Make sure you feel really strong and rooted throughout that right hip as you lengthen through the right side of the body. Notice how the inhale can enhance the sensation of lengthening. From here, get a little light, little springy in that left palm, and press up and over to send your body to the opposite side. Reaching over towards the right with the left arm, making sure we feel firmly rooted and planted in that left hip. Get springy in the right palm. Let's go back and forth between these positions, moving on your own time with your own breath. If anything feels technical difficulties. If anything feels particularly soothing, feel free to pause there. You can shine your heart up and down. You feel a bit of a shearing sensation of the muscles throughout the back and chest. Or you can keep playing between these different positions. The next time you are leaning over towards your right, let's pause here. And let's all turn our head down towards the mat, reaching up and over and walking the palms to the opposite side. Feeling that extra freedom we get from flexing the back forward. Let's repeat this movement. Feeling no need to go too far down towards the ground. It's totally okay if we're up pretty high. We're still warming up our bodies and don't want to overdo it. Once again, allow yourself the freedom to pause in any spot that feels particularly good and juicy for you. The next time you're over towards the right, let's pause here, get springy, and send ourselves back into neutral. Let's shake it up a bit now. We'll lean back onto our sits bones so that our legs get light. Allow the legs to float up in the air in front of you. We're going to come into a Navasana or boat pose. Hello, welcome. So we're in our Navasana or boat pose facing the long edge of our mat. You can have your hands behind your thighs for some support. You can have them floating up beside you, or you can have your legs reaching towards the sky, straightening and lengthening through the hamstrings. Trust that your choice is a correct one. We'll pause here for 3, 2, 1. And now let's tilt it forward so our feet are flat on the earth, knees bent, and simply fold the body over the knees. Use your inhale to stretch the skin of the back and create a bit of space between the vertebrae. And use the exhale to sink a little closer towards the knees. It truly doesn't matter if your head is touching the knees or not. Just allow your spine a bit of space. Let's drag our palms towards our hips for some support as we return to a neutral upright spine. From here, let's use some windshield wipers of allowing the legs to fold side to side, enjoying a bit of a massage throughout the glutes. You can experiment with having the feet closer to the bum or a little farther away from the bum. Let's join the action to the breath. And totally okay to continue on with this movement. If you want, you can freestyle a little, maybe sending the arms one side to the other, exploring space you cultivated within the shoulders. All right, let's eventually pause towards neutral. You can allow your knees to fold over to one side, doesn't really matter which one. Sit your hips to the side and then walk on up with your palms to come to a tabletop position facing the long edge of your mat. I know many of us will be perpendicular to our mats. That should be just fine. Again, we'll be on our knees for a little bit, so this is a good opportunity to get a blanket or towel or flip over your mat for some support. Find a position where your palms are underneath your shoulders, knees are underneath your hips. From here, we're going to shift our weight towards our left palm and reach up and over with the right. You notice your hips are going to want to bump up a little bit towards the right. Do your best to keep those hips above the knees and feel that connection all the way from your right arm towards your hips. From here, let's bend through our left palm and send our right palm underneath without touching the mat, just hovering it an inch or two above the mat. pause here for a breath or two, feeling the strength of the shoulders, stabilize this movement. And then on your next inhale, let's inflate back up to our position. Play between these movements on your own time with your own breath. Bending into the left arm and reaching with the right. And then straightening through the left arm, sending the right arm up into a twist. Become conscious of the journey of the shoulder blades as you really mobilize the shoulders and show them some love. The next time your left arm is bent and right arm is reaching to the side, allow yourself to land your right shoulder onto the mat. You can pause here, and there's a few different options. You can leave your left palm as it is with some support, maybe press into it a little bit to open up the right shoulder. You can also experiment with walking that left palm forward a little bit so that you're feeling a bit of a sensation in the left shoulder as well. And if you're feeling really open and just not noticing too much from this and want to explore something different, you can even take your left palm, place it into the crease of your right hip for a bit of a bind. So that way you're really feeling that sensation of opening throughout the back of the right shoulder and the front of the left shoulder. Wherever you're at, feel free to switch between options, pick a choice that works for you, and let's just settle in and sink into the mat. Let's all return so that our left palm is flat on the mat, elbow bent. Press into a little bit to free your bottom shoulder. And I invite you now to send out your left leg, toes pointing towards the long edge of the mat. From here, let's unfold our body, reaching up and over with that right arm towards the left, coming into a Parigasana or gate pose. Feel free to take a minute to readjust here. You can allow for a micro bend in the knee. Find a position that works well for your body without creating any tension, especially on the medial and lateral aspects or sides of the knee. Once this is feeling fairly comfortable, I invite you to circle your right arm up and over, reach towards your left leg, and plant that right palm down. To repeat the movement we just did, this time with the leg out. Pause here, feeling your shoulders stabilizing you, and press into the legs to unfurl the body, reaching up and over. Play between these movements, moving on your own time with your own breath. You can experiment with exhaling as you reach towards the leg, inhaling as you inflate upwards. That might feel most natural, but it could also be really cool to play with the opposite. Noticing if you crunch and inhale, it gives you that extra bit of buoyancy and stability. The next time you're up in your Parigasana or gate pose, reaching over towards the left, let's pause here, shift our weight over to our right knee and come to a kneeling position. Let's all tuck under our toes, press our palms into the mat, and come on up into a forward fold Uttanasana. Totally okay if you're off your mat. Allow the head to hang, bend to the knees generously. We really want to give those knees a bit of a break. When you're ready, shift your weight back into your heels, tuck your spine under and stack the spine vertebrae by vertebrae as we slowly imagine yourself like a sunflower turning towards the sun, meet up in a Tadasana or mountain pose. You can allow the arms to continue the journey up if you would like, or have them at the sides. If they're up, you can imagine your palms coming together, pulling down towards the chest. Great. From here, let's all now allow our palms to drop towards the earth. Feel extra light within the shoulders. It's up to you if you'd like to walk onto your mat to feel a little bit more supported, or you can stay on the floor behind you. Shift the weight side to side, and we're going to practice something called the bear twist now, where we just turn our body side to side, allowing the arms to splay out. I find this to be a great way to just fling any tension across the room. You can up the speed a little bit if you'd like, shifting from side to side, bending your knees in the middle to get your heart rate going. Or if your energy is a bit more subdued today, like mine is, maybe go a little bit more slowly. Allow the arms to gently hit the sides. Maybe even close the eyes if you don't feel too busy. It's a great way to just cultivate some mobility. If you're doing your fast bear twist, slow it down. Gradually allowing the twist to become a little bit smaller, have a little bit less momentum, until we eventually pause in the middle for neutral. Take a minute to notice how you feel. From here, let's take a minute to maybe walk back off our mats again, so we're in the same position as before. Bend into the knees, scoop up the air as we reach up into a Tadasana. This time we're going to dive forward, hinging from the hips, maintaining a micro bend in the knees. And now let's walk our palms out and come onto the knees once more into a tabletop position perpendicular to the long edge of our mat. Same thing, next side. This time we'll press into our right palm and reach up and over with the left, twisting over towards the left side. Again, your hips want to bump out. You can definitely allow that to a degree. If you want to become more conscious of that sensation through the core, try to keep the hips above the knees. Let's reach underneath that right arm, keeping the left arm hovering an inch or two above the mat. And then let's inflate up to our twist. Once again, repeat this movement a few times, moving with your own breath. Noticing how we're cultivating some freedom and mobility in the shoulders, while building some strength too. The next time your left arm is reaching over towards the right, pause there and allow the left shoulder to land gently on the mat. Take a minute to decide what you'd like to do with your right arm, either giving you some support and pressing the palm into the mat, maybe walking out the hands a little bit so they're reaching forward beyond the long edge of the mat in front of you. And again, as another option, if this is just not creating enough sensation for you, you can take that right arm, send it to the crease of your left hip for a bit of a bind. It's totally okay if your option on one side is different from the other. Oftentimes we'll have some imbalances in strength and flexibility between our two sides. Just make sure that you're being honest with yourself and choosing a position that is truly what your body is craving and not driven by any expectations. Return to our breath and allow ourselves to melt into the mat. The more we're able to relax, the more we're able to cultivate space within the shoulders and our joints. Let's all take a minute to return our right palm towards the mat, elbow bent if it wasn't already. From here, press into the right palm, free that left shoulder off the mat, and this time send out the right foot towards the side. Let's rise on up into a Parigasana pose, reaching over towards the right with the left arm. Breathe here to really feel the strength and stability and openness throughout the right side of the body and how it gets even a little deeper with the inhale. Let's now swirl our arms down, reaching over towards the right, getting some support from our right arm. Let's play between these two movements just like we did before. Moving on our own time with our own breath. You can follow the path of your hand with your eyes and notice how this can make that a full spinal movement by engaging the cervical spine and cervical vertebrae. We won't be here for too much longer. If your knees are talking to you, feel free to take a break at any second. Once you're in your next Parigasana pose, we'll pause here, shift our weight over to our left side. Ooh, and we're actually going to do something I forgot on the other side. Plant that left palm and rise on up with that right foot. From here, allow this top arm to circle up and over. And maybe do a circle following it with your eyes. If your knees are still feeling okay, bend that knee, the top knee, reach behind and give it a little bit of a gentle sensation of opening to open up that right hip. Or you can come and take a break at any point in time. From here, without slingshotting, let's release the leg if we were in our bind. And now we have an option. You can plant your foot for a little bit of support, or you can try to keep it elevated as you stretch the arms apart into a T, and even try to do a short micro balance onto that left leg as you send it back into Parigasana. It can be fun to play with. Let's now return to a kneeling position. We give ourselves a little bit of a break off the knees by tucking under the toes, pressing into the palms, and coming into an Uttanasana forward fold. Now let's catch up on the other side before we move on. Once we're feeling ready, let's walk out the palms, bend through the knees, and this time send out our left foot, walking your palms over towards the right so that our right arm's planted, left arm up into the air. It's totally okay to leave that left foot planted while you do some circles with the top arm. Or if you want, you can allow it to be elevated. You can even maybe play with bending the leg forward and back as you circle the arm, just to create a little bit more of a full body sensation. But if it's too much, less is often more. Option here to gently bend through that top knee, grab the foot or ankle, and create sensation of opening through at that left side of the hip. You can enhance the Navasana stretches, or not Navasana, Natarajasana stretches you did last week. Ooh, I'm really getting too zenned out. Without slingshotting, you can straighten through that top left leg, reach up and over with your left arm. And as you transition back to Parigasana, really lengthen through all your limbs, press through that bottom right leg, and maybe balance for a second or two, or three, as we transition back to our Parigasana on the other side. Okay, let's get off these knees. Plant the palms, tuck the legs under, tuck the toes under, and let's press on back into our Uttanasana forward fold. Inhale to slide the palms up to the calves in a halfway lift. Now exhale to fold. When you're feeling ready, dig into the heels. Notice how that activates the hamstrings ever so slightly, how the hamstrings pull on the pelvis, and how that effortlessly stacks the spine to rise up into our Tadasana mountain pose. From here, let's all take a minute now to walk onto the middle of our mat, shifting your weight side to side and noticing how you feel. This is a great opportunity to grab a little sip of water or a big sip of water as we progress to our next phase. So from here, let's inhale our left arm up and over. This should feel really good, should have lots of shoulder mobility. And now, as we continue that journey, let's turn the feet towards the right, send out the back leg a little bit, bend through the knees as we land in kind of a superhero pose, facing the short edge of your mat, left side towards the screen, if that works out for your space. Take a minute to roll the mat or use a towel or blanket to show some love to the knees if you would like. From here, let's scoop up the air, send our hips forward, and reach up and back into a low Anjaneyasana lunge. Use your breath to feel the opening through the left hip. I'm going to walk my front leg out a little bit more. As I then send my palms forward and send the hips back. Option to do a bit of a floating transition where you're not making contact with the ground. If that's not feeling so stable, simply allow your palms to meet and then send the hips back. Coming into an Ardha Hanuman half splits position. If you don't want to make contact with the mat, you can send your arms up behind you. Shining the heart forward, noticing how that creates that sensation of opening the back of the right hamstring. From here, this is a good opportunity. If you have a block, feel free to use it, or allow your fingertips or palm of your left hand to make contact with the mat as we shine our heart towards our straight leg towards the right. Take a few deep breaths here, noticing how this enhances and kind of changes the sensation of stretch in the hamstring. Let's now get light through that left palm as we bend through the front knee and then send our arms up and back so that our left palm is reaching up behind us, really feeling a lovely stretch throughout that front left hip. Let's now twist towards the front, maybe shortening the stance a little bit as we return to our Anjaneyasana. So let's repeat that sequence a few times, moving on your own time. Sending the hips back, arms behind you or towards the mat for your half splits. Making contact with the mat or a block and twisting towards the straight leg. And then sending the arms up and back. Twist towards the front. Send the hips back. Feel free to move on your own time and with your own breath. Twist towards the straight leg. And reach up and back. It's not all, twist towards the front for your Anjaneyasana. And this time, everybody imagine your palms paging a wall in front of you. Make contact with the mat, tuck underneath the back toes, and let's raise the hips, giving that knee a bit of a break. You can get light and bouncy here and send that right foot to meet the left as we meet in a brief plank. Let's ensure that our palms are underneath our shoulders, really zipping up through the legs and feeling the strength of our core supporting us. For 3, 2, 1. Send the hips up and back for our very first downward facing dog of the practice. Let's pedal out the feet, really noticing any difference between the two sides of the hamstrings. You can pause for stillness in the middle when you're ready. And now let's shift the weight towards the left foot and send the right heel up into the air, doing our best to keep our hips level as we come into a 3-legged dog. Maybe you're like, nope, no 3-legged dog today. That's totally fine. You can do the next sequence from your knees or from a tabletop position if you'd like. For now, if you're in your 3-legged dog, let's bend through the knee, shift our weight forward, and bring the knee towards the nose. On your next inhale, let's send that leg up and back. Same thing, we're going to bend the knee, this time moving it towards the opposite elbow. So it will probably be your right knee to your left elbow. Inhale to send the leg back. This time, let's bend the right knee towards the right elbow, pausing here. Totally okay if they touch, also totally okay if they don't. And then send it back for one last 3-legged dog on this side. Pause, appreciate your strength. And then let's bend the knee, shift the weight forward, and place the foot between the palms. Getting light in the fingertips, we're actually going to shift the weight back and walk our palms to face the long edge of the mat, likely facing towards the screen. From here, bend into the knees and fold forward. And during a Prasarita Padottanasana, wide-legged forward fold. You can shift the weight side to side. Imagine the upper body just kind of pouring over the legs. Great. From here, let's maybe walk the legs a little bit closer by heel toeing them in, bend into the knees, bring the hands to the hips, and let's press on up into a wide-legged standing position. Feel that flush of energy. And now we have an option. You can either heel toe the legs into each other or do a little bit of a hop to meet in a Tadasana. Once you're feeling ready, let's inhale that right arm up and over. Continue the journey by turning the feet towards the short edge of the mat, bending through the back leg and landing into our superhero pose, if you will, facing this side. So from here, same thing. This time we've got our left knee in front. Scoop up the air, send the arms up and back into our low Anjaneyasana. Do the same sequence, sending the hips back as we fold over into the half splits. Plant the right fingertips or palm. Feel free to use a block as we twist towards that left straight leg, making sure to keep them up prevents we're not locking the joint. Now shift the weight forward, right arm goes up and over into an Anjaneyasana. Turn towards the short edge of the mat for a regular Anjaneyasana. And let's repeat this sequence, moving on your own time with your own breath. If you get lost, feel free to look and see what I'm doing. I'll try to minimize cueing so you can really just fall into the flow. The next time you're in your Anjaneyasana facing the short edge of the mat, let's pause here. Let's all paint the wall in front of us, plant our palms, tuck underneath the back toes and get light and springy. Once we're ready, let's send that front left foot back into a plank position. Take a minute to make sure our palms are underneath our shoulders, that we're feeling strong, knowing you can come to your knees at any point in time and you're still building just as much strength. We'll pause here for 3, 2, 1. And now let's send the hips up and back to a downward facing dog. Pedal up the feet. Feel free to experiment with different lengths of your stance. I often like to walk my toes in a little bit for my downward dog. Let's shift the weight from side to side. Once you're ready and pause in stillness, shift the weight ever so slightly towards the right foot. Send the left heel up into the air for your three-legged dog. Feel that long line of energy all the way from your fingertips to your upper toes, and then bend the knee, bringing it in towards the chin as we shift the weight forward. Send it back to three-legged dog. This time, let's bend the knee, bringing your left knee towards your right elbow into a bit of a twist. Send it back to three-legged dog. Once more, let's bend the knee, bringing left knee to left elbow, pausing here, really feeling your core get some lift and elevation of the knee to get it as high away from the mat as we can. And then send it into our three-legged dog. Last time on this side, bend the knee, send the weight forward, and step the foot between the palms as gently as you can. From here, we'll get a little bit light and springy. Shift the weight back and walk the palms towards the long edge of the mat, coming into a forward fold, Prasarita Padottanasana. From here, let's plant our right palm, send our left arm up into the air, twisting over towards the left. Feel that connection all the way from your left fingertips to your right hip. Maybe even bump your hips a little bit out towards the right and notice how that enhances the sensation. Let's bring that top arm down, plant the palm or fingertips in the middle, and this time send our right arm up over towards the right side. Breathe deep. Use the breath to create that sensation of opening throughout the chest and throughout the shoulders. Noticing how the sensation travels all the way down through the inner aspect of the left leg and left foot. Let's plant the palms. Okay, now from here, we're going to heel toe the feet in everyone so that we find ourselves in a regular Uttanasana forward fold. Let's send the weight back, rise to halfway lift, and then exhale it down. Now, when you're ready, let's send the weight back and ever so slowly and luxuriously rise all the way up to a Tadasana or mountain pose. Take a minute, maybe shake it out a little bit. It's a good opportunity to grab a sip or two of water. As we prepare for our final little sequence from standing. So for here, we're actually just going to all turn towards our right side, short edge of the mat, step it out into Anjaneyasana. We're going to do that exact same sequence from before, but standing. If this is a lot and if you don't feel really stable, totally okay to come and do it from the knee position again. So let's reach up and back. We've got our front right knee bent, left leg behind us, really feeling that opening through the left hip. Now, this is a great opportunity to use blocks if you have them, or bricks or books or soup cans or whatever you've got. From here, let's send the weight back without planting the back foot. Plant your palms or fingertips on the mat or towards the mat in a block as we reach forward, coming into a modified pyramid pose or Parshvottanasana. When you're ready, let's twist towards the front leg, allowing for a micro bend throughout, making sure we're not locking through the joints. And now let's bend through that front leg, squeezing the legs together for stability as we reach up and back with the left arm. Wobbles totally expected and welcome here. Okay, and now let's turn towards the short edge of the mat. Let's do that one more time, following with me or with your own breath. Send the weight back, planting the palms or fingertips, turning towards front right leg, and then bending through that front knee, send it back into your Anjaneyasana. From here, let's actually turn all of our 10 toes towards the long edge of the mat facing the screen, and then continue on to simply turn and face the opposite end, so towards the left side short edge of your mat. Take a minute to set up your block if you'd like that extra bit of support. Scoop the air up into your Anjaneyasana. Feel that opening throughout the right hip. Let's shift the weight back, keeping the back heel lifted as we plant the palms or fingertips onto the mat or onto our support. Twist towards that straight front left leg, or somewhat straight front left leg. And bend through the knees to rise on up, whoops, to your wobbly Anjaneyasana. Turn to face the short edge of the mat, and let's repeat it on your own time once again. Fold forward into pyramid. Twist towards the front leg. Bend through that front knee, squeeze the legs together and rise on up ever so slowly and smoothly as you can to your Anjaneyasana. Let's all turn to face the short edge of the mat. And now let's paint the wall in front of us, allowing our palms to walk towards the long edge of the mat. From here, we're going to heel toe our legs in a little bit and turn the toes out to about 45 degrees or so. Rise on up and shift your weight back and forth, kind of like a video game character or something. Find a spot where your pelvis feels really buoyant and really supported. Maybe you want to walk your legs out further, turn your toes out further, turn them in. Just find a spot that feels good for you. From here, once you feel really buoyant and bouncy, can allow the arms to go out to the sides like you're holding a huge beach ball. You can pause for stillness or keep shifting the weight, feeling your legs working to support you. If this feels really stable, you can experiment with coming up into one set of toes, coming up onto the next set of toes, welcoming any shake and strengthening that's happening. You can even experiment coming up onto both toes at once. You can hold it here or raise and lower a few times. We won't be here for too much longer in our goddess pose. We'll just be here for 3, 2, 1. Let's all come on up into a brief starburst pose. Turn our toes towards the front and fold forward. We're simply going to heel toe our legs in again, step our feet back, and come on in to a kneeling position. If this doesn't feel good for you, feel free to modify for a seated position. Take a minute to reconnect with the breath and see where we're at as we begin to cool down. If you're in a kneeling position, allow your hips to go towards the right side of your legs, and then send your legs out towards the short edge of the mat. From here, maintain a micro bend in your legs, reach up and over as we engage in a Paschimottanasana forward fold. You can allow the head to drape towards the knees, no need to go all the way down. And once again, pause for stillness, or maybe shift the weight from hip to hip as we snake the spine. Press through the legs to rise on up, and making sure we've got some space behind us. You can imagine yourself holding a big beach ball, curving the spine, and rolling down slowly and with as much control as you can. Allow your body to meet the mat and take a minute to engage in any other movements that would feel good and restorative right now. Maybe bring the knees to the chest. Maybe engage in some windshield wipers like at the start of the practice. Take a minute to find what your body is craving. Once you're ready, let's all meet in Shavasana, wiggling our shoulder blades beneath us as we sink into the mat. I'll cue us out. We'll spend a minute or two here. And you're welcome to stay here in Shavasana. But if you need to get on going, let's drag that left heel back, pressing into the left foot to send our body over to the right. Press into the left palm and rise on up into a seated position of your choice. If the eyes are closed, you can allow them to flutter open. And thank you so much for spending some time doing some yoga with me today. I hope you are feeling nice and soft and loose and had a great time. See you later.